thinking about thinking. Yeah, this is a good one. Thinking about thinking. So we're getting a little bit subtler here. Thinking about thinking. And you've probably all, if you've practiced for a little while, you've probably had this experience where you're practicing. Let's say you were doing a basic, simple breath practice, you're observing your breath, or even we're doing a listening practice, whatever it is. And you have some amount of focus on your target. You're aware of breath, you're aware of the sounds, you're present. And yet that narration in your head, it kind of continues. So it might even be an example of that is, so you're listening to the sounds, you go, oh yeah, I'm hearing this now, oh, I'm hearing the birds now, I'm hearing that now. And this storytelling is going on in your head. The narrator's voice continues on in your head. So this is not a bad thing, right? This is a step on getting towards full concentration. And it's a big step forward, a huge step forward from being lost in thought, right? We should stop and just be aware that most of the time people are lost in thought. You are off in your thoughts and you're nowhere, you're not present, you're not aware of what's happening, actually happening right in your environment. So thinking about thinking requires you to have some degree of presence. So you're already winning to some degree. You have a presence that's a little bit grounded and it's sustainable. And so what's going on is that thinking mind, it just keeps on doing what it's doing, right? And it's going to do that for quite a long time. It's been wound up for however old you are. Take that number -1. Right? And that's about how long your thinking mind, you've been winding it up, and it never wants to stop. And it's a brilliant kind of mind. We want to use that, but it's out of control, right? As you can see, because it doesn't stop. And the thing with that mind, in our model, that's this part of your hand right here. That's your primate brain, your thinky brain. And it feels that every single problem and issue in your life is well served by thinking about it, right? And this is what people do sort of just innately. You think, okay, let's say you're depressed, right? And you think, oh my God, I'm depressed. And this brain, which is kind of our home base, our thinking brain, it's where our whole ego is, our sense of self is, our story, all that stuff. We live in this brain. This brain will tell you always, without fail, that the answer to your problem is to think. You got to figure it out. You got to think it out. This is what we're taught to do at school from, kindergarten on up. And so it's just trying to help you. It says, okay, look, I'm depressed. I'm going to think my way out of this. I'm feeling anxious. I'm going to figure this out. And no one in history has ever figured their way out of being depressed or anxious. Right? You can't do it. In fact, there's a word for that, they call it rumination, where you actually, as you start thinking about, when you're in that depressed state and you start thinking about it, you're going to start just cycling yourself worse, right? Because you're thinking about it. And the problem is your brain is this multi-layered brain, and the process of your brain is a bottom-up process. It's very hard to think your body different, whereas you can body your thoughts different. You can change your body, which will change your emotions, which will change your thoughts. Anyway, I digress a little bit. Thinking about thinking is a good sign, right? It's not necessarily the greatest sign if it's 5 years later and you're still thinking about thinking. But when you're beginning the practice and you have some modicum of presence, I'm aware of my breath, I'm aware of the breath, I'm aware of the sounds around me, and yet this little mind keeps telling me what's going on. It keeps an ongoing narration track. That's okay. That's a little bit like you're in a room, you're at a party, you're focused on talking to one person, and you hear other conversations around you. Or in a room with a TV on, but you're focused somewhere else, you're talking to someone, and you're aware of it, but you can still keep refocusing in on what your actual point of focus is. And then as you do that more and more, you're going to find that voice is going to fade. Right? It's going to just at some point kind of calm down, realize, well, no one's listening to me. And in fact, it really likes to calm down. It likes to take a little break. It's really good for it. And it loves that feeling of full concentration, for which it needs to be quiet. So thinking about thinking is a good step. Don't change anything. Just refocus And don't worry about it, don't react to it, don't talk to it, certainly. The moment you talk back to it, it just lights up and it thinks, haha, now we are in the zone. We can just think our way to something, but you only think your way to more thoughts, ever. And if your thoughts are problematic, if you haven't dealt with the emotions under it, you're going to think your way to more problems, right? So thinking about thinking is okay, just refocus and don't focus on those guys, those thoughts. Thanks.